Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David, and I'm going to talk to you about SoilWatch and how we are scaling large-scale ecosystem restoration where it is needed most on the front lines of climate change. But I'm going to be talking to you a lot about a context that is very unfamiliar to a lot of people, so just to warn you ahead. But don't worry, I'm then going to be going back to the things that maybe you're more interested in. But so first of all, a little bit of context, a little bit of a summary of what we're going to be talking about. We are an environmental analytics service provider. We combine satellite data, we provide with machine learning and biogeochemical process models so that we can reach European Union Tier 3 levels of verification of how much carbon dioxide is removed by nature-based solutions. In addition to that MRV, we also support projects with feasibility and design support. And our primary markets are, of course, we get revenues from the voluntary carbon markets, but also overseas development aid or official development aid. But now a little bit about that context. I'm sure everyone here is aware about the impacts of climate change on people in the Sahel and people in East Africa and on livelihoods in general in the region and around the world. But it's not the whole story. In fact, the main driver of land degradation and soil erosion in this region is unsustainable land use, starting in the 1960s, primarily the result of political philosophies and industrialization in areas where it should not have taken place in the first place. That land degradation leads on to increased competition over an ever-decreasing resource. It leads on to decreased crop production, decreased fodder production, and then you have increased food insecurity, leading to tension, conflict, displacement, and migration. And then a destructive feedback loop leading to ever more intensive land degradation. These are local problems that have major international impacts, but just as the problems are local, so too can the solutions be. And those solutions are NBS, nature-based solutions, sometimes also called NCS, natural climate solutions. We're talking about rotational grazing, regenerative agriculture, agroforestry, there's a long list, but what they all have in common is that they restore the ecosystem. You're changing food production systems from being destructive to being regenerative. And when you do that, you increase soil health, you increase biodiversity, you're removing and durably storing carbon into the above-ground biomass, into the soil. And then that, in turn, is leading to increased resilience to flooding, increased resilience to drought, as the soils act as a sponge. And then altogether, more sustainable livelihoods, higher production. You also create, through evapotranspiration, microclimates, which just generally make livelihoods more productive and more profitable for the people who are living there. But the obvious question is, why isn't this happening if it's so obvious? Well, there are gaps in the systems. You have official development assistance, which has fantastic networks across the region, around the world, for actually implementing projects. But traditionally, they have not been looking at the environmental impact of their project. That's a major weakness. The first project to look at it was actually only this year. They also, because of that lack of environmental impact, they focus on socioeconomic data, which is great, but not enough. On the other side, you have the voluntary carbon markets, which project design can be complex, but the main issue we have with that right now is that there's just no supply. So you have massive demand, and there's just no supply out there for people. It's gotten to the situation now where MasterCard are now providing ex-ante financing so that projects can actually do the necessary work at the beginning to demonstrate what their impact will be, because they realize if they don't do that, there won't be projects in the future. Now, on the flip side of that, you have organizations like one of our partners, the United Nations International Fund for Agricultural Development, who see it completely differently. What they see is, instead of funding a project for 30 years, we just need to fund it for the first year, and then the private sector takes over for the rest of their project lifetime. So there are synergies there. But then there's also another gap, which is the monitoring, reporting, and verification. Scientifically rigorous, scalable, transparent. And that's where SoilWatch steps in. We developed our tool system from the ground up to answer directly the weaknesses that were in the market and the needs from players, from the buyers all the way down to project developers. It's scalable, it's based on open satellite data, high resolution, yes, but more importantly, high frequency, which is essential for monitoring project impacts and ensuring that you can provide actionable information to project developers so that they can take action before it becomes too late in some cases. And that also allows you to have more transparent ecosystem carbon accounting. And that, then, the other issue is transparency and rigor. And we developed a system based solely on published, peer-reviewed research and the ongoing research by some of the top institutes, such as Wageningen, Edinburgh, University of Helsinki, Sydney, Arizona, and Yale Climate Center. And with their research, which is ongoing, which is continuously being developed, and we develop as they developed, we developed a system to go beyond current certification standards to reach European Union Tier 3. That means that we're talking about causation, not correlation. And then, of course, we have ground truthing. So that can be soil samples, that can be detecting areas, but then University of Sydney have developed a way to actually reduce the costs even further and optimize that. But where do we fit into this development marketplace? Well, we see ourselves as being firmly on the supply side, on enabling supply and bringing supply online. And that means also answering some of the issues that project developers have by automating the systems for project design to reduce the costs there. Now, look, if a buyer wants certification, that can be done. Our system goes beyond current certification, so certification is not an issue. But I think what's crucial is that the monitoring is ongoing. And that provides confidence both for the buyer and funder and also actionable intelligence for the project on the ground. The revenues come from essentially two different parts, the design and the MRV. And obviously design comes before MRV, but the system is circular because you have a situation where NGOs and private companies on the ground who are doing these projects, they do it in phases or they want to expand, and there is an ever-growing demand for credits for projects. So the system is circular with learnings feeding back in and improving with different projects as you iterate. Although our system has a global reach, our focus is on Africa because that is where we have lived and worked for the last decade. It's also where there is the most need. From a market perspective, it's also where you have an unparalleled potential for carbon dioxide removals with incredible co-benefits. When we target 4 of the SDGs specifically: climate action, life on land, zero hunger, and gender equality. Sudan alone has the potential, its rangelands alone, to remove over a gigaton of CO2. And although many people are aware of the reports about the carbon dioxide market, removal market going to 50 or 100 billion by 2030, what's less well known is that aid and development budget for Africa is already 64 billion per year. Within the competition in the market, as I said, we position ourselves firmly on the supply side. Our aim is to get as many projects onboarded as possible to have the maximum benefit and impact on the ground. We also focus on removals. Now, by definition, that means that our system can do offsetting, and we do offsetting when a partner comes to us and asks for that, but it's not our focus. And how are we doing? How is our traction? Well, we're still developing. As I said, as new research comes out, we do improve our systems, but the tools are there, they're ready to go, they're already in use. What we still want to develop in the near future is improve our potential mapping system and also develop an app so that communities on the ground can actually take actionable, can be provided with actionable intelligence and improve their activities where they see that they're not restoring land as well as, say, their neighbors are. We're already working with organizations like the World Food Programme and private companies and other UN agencies, and they will continue in the future, but in the coming months we're going to start projects with other UN agencies, with private companies, and some more well-known organizations like the Red Cross and WELF. And we project that by the end of 2024, we'll have almost 2 million in revenue, and by 2030, conservatively, 28 million in revenue. That will be coming from both markets. The official development aid sector and from the voluntary carbon market, but it'll probably be from recurring revenues from subscriptions, but also fees. Now, we don't do commission. And the reason is because we wanted to avoid a conflict of interest. So it's based on transparent fees per area monitored. And that's part of the reason why I'm speaking to you. We have been bootstrapping, and we've been bootstrapping well. However, we recognize that we cannot scale to meet current demand with our bootstrapping approach. Investment of €600,000 would allow us to immediately answer some of the demand that's already on the table, such as a 300,000 hectare site that will potentially remove 6 megatons of CO2. It would allow us to onboard 150 implementers and work on 20 projects already by the end of 2024 and reach that revenue target of 1.9 million. And we have the team to do it. We have backgrounds in data science, climate science, agricultural science, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and we have experience on the ground in these areas. We're spread across 5 different continents, which we're remote first, so we're able to hire the best people no matter where they are. And this actually enables us to access other opportunities. For example, we're going to be starting to support a project in Argentina and Uruguay next year. And that's partially because we have someone who's working in Argentina. So, last but not least, we are part of the Nature Data Alliance. We're founding members. We're also part of the World Economic Forum Great Green Wall Challenge. And I would encourage you all to go upstairs to the pitching stage for projects and see some of the amazing work that we're helping to enable. And if you're interested in credits, I would advise you to get in there early, fund those projects, because if you don't, you won't have any credits to buy. Thank you.